Welcome to Grace Beyond Measure. Please make yourself comfortable. Lie back, rest your weary head, and let your body sink into the quietness of this space. Are you carrying a heavy burden today? Is your mind spinning with the endless noise of the world? Are you feeling the heavy weight of tomorrow pressing on your chest? If you are seeking relaxing Bible stories for sleep, you have found a safe harbor. Here, there are no expectations. Here, there are no demands. You are simply invited to rest in the presence of God. Tonight, we will embark on a guided Christian meditation story. It is carefully designed to quiet your anxious mind. It is crafted to bring deep, unshakable stillness to your soul. Together, we will step back in time. We will leave the modern world behind. We will walk the ancient, dusty hills of Judea, and we will discover the ultimate secret to finding peace in God. In this sacred time, we will explore a beautiful Bible story, the Lord's Prayer. We will sit quietly on the soft grass. We will sit at the feet of the Master, and we will listen closely as Jesus teaches how to pray. But first, let us prepare our hearts. Take a slow, deep breath in. Fill your lungs with the cool, peaceful air of His grace. And now, slowly breathe out. Breathe out your worries. Breathe out your fears. Breathe out the tension in your shoulders. Breathe in His perfect love, and exhale all of your doubts. Let the peace of His holy presence surround you completely. You are safe here. You are loved. Let us begin. The wind swept gently off the Sea of Galilee. It carried the ancient, grounding scent of salt. It carried the fragrance of dried earth and crushed cedar trees. It was the quiet, golden hour of the afternoon. The harsh, unforgiving Judean sun finally began to relent. Long, bruised shadows stretched softly across the rolling hills. For many months, the disciples had followed the Nazarene. They had witnessed things that defied human logic. They had seen ordinary water blush into sweet wine. They had watched withered, broken limbs snap straight with the vigor of youth. They had stood paralyzed in a rocking boat. They watched as a chaotic, deadly storm bowed down. The fierce waves surrendered to a single command from His lips. Yet the breathtaking miracles were not what left them speechless. It was His silence. It was the mysterious way Jesus retreated into the solitary places. He would walk alone into the jagged mountain peaks. He would disappear into the dark, quiet olive groves. He went there simply to speak to the heavens. Whenever He returned from these solitary vigils, He was different. His face carried an unearthly, serene light. He moved with a perfect, unbreakable peace. It was a deep peace that the heavy Roman occupation could not shatter. It was a peace that the rigid laws of the Pharisees could not touch. The disciples were very ordinary men. They were fishermen with calloused, rough hands. They were tax collectors with heavy, guilty consciences. Their own prayers felt incredibly hollow. They would mumble ancient psalms into the dusty ground. They would strike desperate bargains with God in moments of terror. They truly did not know how to speak to the divine. One quiet evening, Jesus descended from a rocky outcrop. John, the youngest follower, could no longer hide his spiritual hunger. He stepped forward from the shadows. His voice trembled slightly in the cool evening breeze. "Lord," he pleaded. The sacred title hung heavy in the quiet air. "Teach us to pray." Jesus stopped walking. He turned and looked at the small circle of broken men. A gentle, deeply knowing smile touched His lips. He did not point them to a heavy scroll of impossible rules. He did not demand a long ritual of purification. Instead, he sat down on the soft, cool grass. He motioned for them to gather close. He gathered them just as a loving shepherd gathers his frightened flock against the coming night. And there, under the canopy of the stars, he spoke the Sermon on the Mount prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. The very first word fell from his lips like a quiet revolution. Father. To truly grasp the meaning of the Lord's Prayer, we must pause here. We must understand the weight of this single, beautiful word. In the ancient language of their ancestors, God was known as Yahweh. He was the great I Am. He was the Almighty who shook Mount Sinai with terrifying thunder and fire. He was the Holy One. His very name was considered too sacred to be spoken aloud. God was the absolute King of the universe. He was a distant, overwhelming force of perfect judgment and law. But Jesus used a completely different word. He used the Aramaic word, Abba. This reveals the true Abba Father meaning. It was a word of profound, shocking, and beautiful intimacy. It is the very word a small child cries out in the dark of night, a cry seeking the comforting, safe arms of a parent. As Jesus spoke, he looked directly into the eyes of Peter. Peter was a man so often driven by deep fear and fierce pride. He looked softly at Matthew. Matthew was a man who had sold his own soul for Roman coins. Our Father, Jesus repeated softly to them. He was granting them divine adoption. He was telling them that the supreme creator of the cosmos did not merely want their blind obedience. He deeply, passionately desired their presence. They were no longer just miserable servants. They were beloved sons and daughters of the Most High God. Yet this beautiful intimacy was perfectly anchored in deep reverence. Hallowed be your name, he continued. The God who holds the universe together is near, but he is not common. To hallow his name is to set it apart completely. It is to honor it above all earthly loyalties, above the mighty emperor in Rome, above the strict high priests in Jerusalem, and above our own selfish, fleeting desires. In this sacred moment of Jesus and disciples praying, a new bridge was built. Jesus taught them the great, beautiful paradox of our faith. We can draw close to the burning fire of God's absolute holiness, and we will not be consumed, because we are safely warmed by the unconditional love of the Father. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. The disciples exchanged nervous, quiet glances in the firelight. The kingdom. This was a word that ignited violent fires in the hearts of the zealots. Many men in Israel dreamed of a kingdom forged in cold steel and warm blood. They desperately wanted a military uprising. They wanted to drive the fierce Roman legions into the deep sea. They wanted to restore the golden throne of David by force. But Jesus was not looking at the Roman garrisons in the distance. He was looking at the humble soil beneath his weary feet. And he was looking at the vast, endless heavens above. Your kingdom come, he prayed into the night. This was absolutely not a call to physical arms. It was an open, desperate invitation for an invasion of divine grace. If you truly want to know how to pray to God effectively, you must understand this surrender. Jesus was teaching them to yearn for the reality of heaven. He wanted heaven to crash into the brokenness of earth. Heaven is the place where God's perfect will is executed without resistance. In heaven, there is no sickness. There is no bitter mourning. There is no cruel injustice. And there is no shadow of death. To pray, "Your will be done," is the ultimate act of human surrender. It is a terrifying yet profoundly beautiful relinquishment of our control. Humanity's darkest, most tragic moments always stem from one desire: the relentless pursuit of "my will be done." We constantly, foolishly try to be the gods of our own small universes. By teaching them this powerful line in the Our Father prayer, Jesus asked for everything. He asked them to lay down their personal, selfish empires. He was gently preparing them for a dark night in the future, the heavy shadows of the Garden of Gethsemane, where he too would fall to his knees in the cold dirt. He would sweat drops like blood, and he would echo this very prayer: "Not my will, but yours be done." He was teaching them that true, lasting freedom is not found in mastering the world. True freedom is found in submitting entirely, submitting your life to the unseen, benevolent architecture of God's grand design.
Give us this day our daily bread. From the vast, cosmic sweeping of heavenly kingdoms, Jesus brought the prayer down. He brought it abruptly down to the dust of human frailty, a loudly rumbling stomach, the heavy, suffocating anxiety of tomorrow, the simple, desperate, daily need to survive in a harsh world. The daily bread, meaning Bible context, is deeply, powerfully rooted in history. It carried the ancient memory of their ancestors in the brutal wilderness. When the Israelites wandered the barren desert, they were starving. God graciously provided white manna from the morning sky, but he only provided exactly enough for one single day. If the people tried to hoard the manna out of fear, it rotted. It bred worms by the next morning. They had to wake up every single day, look at the empty sky, and trust. They had to trust that the heavens would provide once again. Jesus looked deeply at the tired men sitting around him. He knew their silent, hidden anxieties. He knew they constantly worried about the families they had left behind. He knew they worried about their fishing boats sitting empty. He knew they feared their coin purses that were growing terrifyingly light. By instructing them to pray specifically for this day's bread, Jesus did something miraculous. He was breaking the heavy iron chains of anxiety that constantly binds humanity to a future that does not yet exist. This is the absolute core of overcoming anxiety with God. He was teaching them the quiet, beautiful discipline of the present moment. God does not usually grant us a lifetime supply of grace all at once. He does not give us a lifetime of provision in a single day. He grants it day by day, hour by hour, breath by precious breath. This line of the prayer is a gentle, firm rebuke to human greed, and it is a soothing, comforting balm to our relentless worry. It reminds us that we are entirely dependent on the Father's open, generous hand. We depend on him not just for grand spiritual revelations. We depend on him for the actual, physical grain that keeps our hearts beating. It is a profound call to live fully in the now. Breathe in the present moment. Trust completely that the good Father who feeds the tiny sparrows will never let his beloved children starve. And forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. The atmosphere on the grassy hillside grew suddenly, noticeably heavier. The gentle evening breeze seemed to stop completely in the olive trees. This was the most difficult, painful word of all. Debts, sins, trespasses. To understand this part of the Lord's Prayer, we must look into our own hearts. Every single man sitting before Jesus carried a thick mental ledger, a long, detailed list of those who had wronged him, those who had cheated him in the marketplace, those who had insulted his family name. And they carried an even darker, heavier ledger inside, the ledger of their own hidden failures, the quiet, shameful sins committed in the shadows, the sharp words spoken in sudden anger, the painful betrayals of their own hearts. Jesus bound their forgiveness from God directly to their willingness to forgive others, as we forgive. These two actions are permanently, inextricably linked together by heaven. Jesus was illustrating a profound, terrifying spiritual physics. A heart that is tightly closed cannot receive. A heart clenching the toxic poison of bitterness and vengeance is physically incapable of receiving grace. To hold on to a grudge is to build a massive, concrete dam. It blocks the flowing river of God's mercy from reaching your soul. He was asking them to boldly cancel all the debts. The arrogant Roman soldier who forced them to carry his heavy armor. The greedy neighbor who stole a portion of their land. The close brother who betrayed their deepest trust. Forgiveness, Jesus was teaching, is not a warm, easy emotion. It is an agonizing, deliberate daily choice to open a cell door and release a prisoner, only to discover, with tears in your eyes, that the prisoner was actually yourself. By placing this radical command right in the center of the daily prayer, Jesus protected them. He ensured that his followers could not go to sleep at night with toxic roots of resentment. They were to be a community defined not by flawless perfection, but by their relentless, radical, flowing capacity to forgive. As you prepare for sleep tonight, who do you need to forgive? Release them into God's hands and feel the heavy weight lift from your own chest.
And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. The daylight had completely faded from the land now. The first bright stars were piercing through the dark violet canvas of the twilight sky. With the darkness always comes the ancient primal fears of humanity. This is exactly why a sleep meditation Christian practice is so vital for our tired minds. Jesus knew the unseen, spiritual reality of this world better than anyone who ever lived. He had fasted in the brutal, scorching wilderness for 40 days and nights. He had stood face to face with the seductive, twisting lies of the adversary. He knew that his beloved disciples would soon face terrifying trials that would tear at the very fabric of their fragile faith. This specific line was a beautiful cry of profound vulnerability. It was an honest, humble acknowledgement of our absolute human weakness. Do not lead us into temptation is not a suggestion that God sets cruel traps for his children. God does not tempt us to fail. Rather, it is a desperate, childlike plea for a safe, well-lit path. It is the cry of a gentle sheep asking the good shepherd to steer it away from the cliff's edge, because the sheep knows its own dangerous propensity to wander blindly into the shadows. But deliver us from evil, or more accurately translated, from the evil one. Jesus was slowly pulling back the invisible veil on the cosmos. He was reminding them that they were walking through an active spiritual battlefield. There are real forces of malice in the world. There are dark currents designed to steal your joy, kill your hope, and destroy your peace. But listen closely to the prayer of Jesus explained here. In this prayer, they were not taught to cower in terror, nor were they taught to arrogantly fight the darkness with their own fragile human swords. They were taught to hide securely behind the powerful protective cloak of the Father. Deliverance comes not from human strength or cleverness. It comes solely from divine rescue. It is the humble recognition that we cannot save ourselves from the creeping shadows. We deeply, desperately need the light of the world to step in front of us. Let this ultimate truth comfort you completely as you prepare your body for sleep. The shepherd is awake, so you can safely close your eyes. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Jesus finally finished speaking, The holy words seemed to hang in the cool, still night air. They vibrated with a quiet, earth-shattering, eternal power. He had not given them a cheap magic incantation. He had not provided a manipulative formula to force God into granting wishes. Instead, he had given them a true north compass. He had given them a holy, healing rhythm for their weary souls. In just a handful of perfectly chosen words, Jesus mapped out the entire human experience. He brilliantly bridged the infinite, terrifying majesty of the cosmos with the dirt beneath their fingernails. He wove together God's absolute holiness, human physical hunger, the absolute necessity of forgiveness, and our desperate need for protection. The disciples sat in stunned, beautiful silence around the dying fire. John stared quietly at his hands. Peter looked up at the vast sea of stars, feeling smaller than he ever had, yet infinitely more loved. Matthew felt the heavy, suffocating weight of his past grudges washing away into the dark Sea of Galilee below. They did not know it then, but this simple, profound prayer would outlast them all. It would outlast the mighty Roman Empire. It would be whispered by faithful martyrs in the dark, damp cells of colosseums. It would be chanted gracefully in towering, gold-leafed cathedrals centuries later. It would be spoken by frightened soldiers crouching in muddy trenches. It would be prayed by weeping mothers at hospital bedsides. And it would be spoken by children folding their little hands in the quiet peace of their bedrooms. The Lord's Prayer would become the eternal heartbeat of humanity reaching out to the divine. As Jesus rose from the grass, the moon casting a silver glow over his strong shoulders, he looked back at his friends. They were finally ready. They knew how to speak to the heavens, not as fearful beggars crying out to a distant tyrant, but as beloved, cherished children speaking intimately to their Father. Thank you for joining us tonight on this Christian meditation story with grace beyond measure. As you drift into sleep tonight, let the words of Christ echo in your mind. You are fully forgiven. You are completely protected. You have your daily bread for today. May you let go of all your heavy burdens. May your mind find absolute stillness. And may you sleep deeply and safely under his mighty protective wings, on earth as it is in heaven. Amen.